Good morning. Hello. Welcome, everybody. See, YouTube is on. Good morning, everybody. Today, I'm very excited. We are going to talk about some really critical news about the coronavirus. I actually have a ton of information to share. And I also I'm trying to get Instagram on. Let me just do that really fast. So for all of you joining me, let's see, why is it not doing that? I had all sorts of weird things happen with, here we are. With Instagram, they've had all these recent updates. And so even the way I go live has changed. So let me bring them on. Okay, let's see. Okay, so if you're joining us for the first time, welcome everybody. Instagram's back on. My name is Dr. Melissa Gallagher. I host a news show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to give you updates about the coronavirus here domestically in the US, but also worldwide. And I share with you news and tips that are aimed to help you create the healthiest immune system, create the healthiest optimized wellness plan that you can have for you and your family so that you can get through this pandemic in a safe and healthy way. So today, I want to share with you the most critical hormone. If it is imbalanced, it has the greatest detriment on your immune system. So we'll get into that. I'm going to share with you how you can test. There are home test kits like these that I run for my patients all the time. And I'm going to share with you a lot of information about how this hormone, what it is, how it influences your immune state, your gut health, all these different systems that play into your immune health. So if you are new, welcome. I hope you'll hit the subscribe button, join us, give us a like. Also, YouTube, the live chat is on, the super chats are on, and I see we've got a lot of folks tuning in and commenting. That's a great resource for you all as we build community. And also Instagram, you guys, the chat is on, and badges, a new function, apparently is being matched by Instagram. So that's a way to support our channel by adding 1 heart, 2 hearts, or 3 hearts by contributing. And we've had a lot of folks do that recently. It's been really exciting. So let's dig into some news, everybody. The first bit of the news, I want to apologize for being late. We are counting down 3 days to a vacation time. Obviously, we're not going anywhere. We're staying at home, but our child is going to have about 2.5 weeks of no school, and he's extremely excited. Cannot keep his butt stable and in his seat for anything more than 30 seconds. So the excitement is gathering. We might have him pop by and make a cameo on our show. So I have to share with you that. Okay. Worldwide, the US, the world is at 72 million COVID cases. The US is at 16.7 million cases. We've seen a little bit of a slowdown in terms of the quantity of positive cases. We have posted yesterday 180,000. It's just at 180,238,000 total new cases. We did have the fatalities spike. We saw those move up to 2,532 American lives lost yesterday due to COVID. And we are now at a total of 306,014 lives lost here in the US to COVID. The big thing that I want to share with you globally, or at least internationally, the United Kingdom is starting to ease some of the restrictions, much to the frustration of health professionals. They saw the lockdown in October, November working, and now they're easing it so that they're allowing 3 households to gather for Christmas. That is limited. And the health professionals are calling this a grave risk. And so if you are in the UK, please take caution. Please continue to use social distance. The vaccines just started on last Tuesday, or I think last Monday in the UK. Yeah, I think it was last Monday. But anyway, that is a grave concern for health professionals there. Now, before we dig into the rest of the news, I forgot to announce, I need your help, friends. So I have a Facebook page, and I'm just about 1,700 shy of a 10,000 follower, followed status. And that category actually helps promote our business and allows me to do all sorts of really cool things on Instagram for our Instagram show. So I'm going to do a quick plug. If you can, please follow me, follow my page on Facebook, and you can find it, Your Natural Health Resources. You have to put the your, Y-O-U-R. There's another natural health resources before I could secure that. But I hope you'll follow my business page, and I'd love to see us hit 10,000 before the end of the year. That allows me to give Instagram followers more awesome things. And it also allows us to have greater access to some of the creator categories. And apparently I've been deemed a creator now on Facebook and Instagram. So woo. So anyway, back to our regular programming. The news is that over Thanksgiving, we had a total of 4 million US citizens travel. And that is, we're starting to see the uptake in hospitalizations and fatalities. And I want to share with you some of the states that have had fatality records and continue to have high fatality. Some are just always going to be in this status because they're not taking precautions. They have a massive amount of community spread, like North Dakota and South Dakota. They've been on this list for months now. Iowa, Wyoming. Iowa's been up there, Wyoming as well. A few new ones. Colorado. On Monday, Colorado hit a record fatalities in the state of Colorado. And obviously Colorado is a big December travel, kicking off the ski season. So Colorado, we're going to be watching that out for. Arkansas, Illinois, Kansas, those states also saw increases and had the highest fatalities in the US. New Mexico, and then also Pennsylvania. That's a new addition. This week, Pennsylvania had record numbers last week, and we are seeing those increases. I do want to share with you a crazy, unfortunate situation here in Georgia. It has been announced, I think it came out yesterday, that a Santa and Mrs. Claus were attending a county, it's Long County here in Georgia. They were attending a Thursday evening Santa parade put on by the county commission, or the what is it called? I think it's like the Small Business Association or the Chamber of Commerce. So this county Chamber of Commerce put on this parade and had a photo op. So they set up a whole section where Santa and Mrs. Claus were seated, and kids could go and sit and take photos with Santa. Now, we've done that, but we were very, very calculated, very controlled, very limited, and it was like a hired Santa, not at an outdoor, not at an event like this where the public were exposed. And lo and behold, Santa and Mrs. Claus tested positive on the Saturday. So Thursday they had the photo. Saturday, Mr. Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus tested positive. And they put 50 children, and I don't have a tally on the quantity of families that they put at risk, but now these families, they've all been notified and they have to quarantine, and they're going to have to do that, unfortunately, through the Christmas holidays. So that's just an example of, I know that they were not, from pictures, they were not masking. The kids were not masking. Even though it's outdoors, you still need to wear masks when you're in contact with people. Even, some of the studies are showing even 5 minutes is enough time to have exposure. So that's something that we're seeing. We'll probably hear pop up. I have no doubt. I've been shocked to see emails come through from malls and other parties that normally have events. I just got one from a really nice hotel here in Buckhead, Atlanta. So in a really swanky area, they're hosting a New Year's party, a masquerade, not like a COVID masquerade. They literally are hosting a huge indoor event for New Year's. I don't even know why they would do that. This is really crazy. The first case of COVID has been found in a wild animal. And this is related to the mink. Remember, I had told, for all of you who tune in regularly, it's really devastating. The mink population, mink farms have been infiltrated by COVID from humans. And the challenge with the mink, as we saw internationally, there's a mutation that occurs, something with their immune system, their DNA, the RNA. I don't know why. No one knows just yet. But there's a mutation, and the virus actually mutates differently and more lethally in the mink. And it's problematic because now we have these vaccines. They studied the DNA and the RNA and all this stuff that was in existence pre-mink exposure. And it puts a greater risk at the efficacy of that, and also the new strain that they're seeing change within the mink population. Well, part of what happened is Wyoming and Oregon, and I think it's Wisconsin, Minnesota, Wyoming, and Oregon have mink farms. Well, in monitoring the mink farms, what they've done is they've trapped the wild animals nearby and they've tested them to make sure that there isn't this spread outside these farms. Well, what is crazy is they trapped a wild mink and tested it, and it has COVID-19. It has SARS-CoV-2. And it was trapped actually in Utah. So I want to make that clarification. Utah. These are animals that were trapped and monitored outside of a mink farm in Utah. And it's the first known case worldwide of wildlife demonstrating COVID-19 and showing through blood and testing that it tested positive. Now, we've seen this with the zoos. We know the felines, like there's snow leopards, lions, and tigers that are susceptible. We've seen dogs and cats domestically, internationally. So domesticated cats and dogs, our pets, have had COVID as well. Happens more so with felines. So I don't know if there's that the mink connection. I don't know. I'm not a vet. I don't have any animal kind of scientific background to know. Are mink close relatives? Are they genetically kind of engineered very similar to cat? I have no idea. But that is really interesting, and that is going to obviously lead to more research and trying to find out what's going on there, and who knows what that means in other parts of the world that have had massive outbreaks. Russia, the UK, and the wildlife and the impact there. We just don't know. I don't know if they've been trapping and testing animals. So, but that is really interesting. Now, I had on Monday's conversation, I really appreciate everybody. I went back and looked at all of the commentary. I appreciate all of you guys participating in our Monday show. I had a lot of questions, and one of the questions that I wanted to answer was a concern about the ingredients actually of the Pfizer vaccine, and concern that there wasn't transparency, like why is this not being broadcast? And I have to tell you, it's very easy to find. The ingredients, the data that is being put out, there's a lot of transparency and there's accessibility. And I want to put this out there as well. One of the comments I saw kind of routinely is you have to also, if you are really concerned about certain things about the vaccine or the virus, you need to do your own research as well. And the information is there. I will tell you, I spend a lot of time canvassing and digging, and I have certain resources that I refer to that are, quantified as tried and true, valid sources. And I urge you to do the same and to obviously think critically when you are investigating. But I want to share with you, I've got a list right here. I've got a list of the ingredients in the Pfizer medication or the Pfizer vaccine. So it's a little vial, and the active points of this, what's really critical is that there are 4 lipids that help carry this coding, and coding meaning the messenger, the mRNA, the M is messenger. It's a particular synthetic. It's not a live it's not a live part of the virus. But it's been genetically encoded, it's been modified, it's been engineered, it's synthetic coding. It's encoded for a viral spike. So the idea with this vaccine is this modified RNA. It has the capacity to tell your own cells to manufacture this protein-like spike that then mimics, it's mimicry, if you will, and it helps the body recognize the SARS-CoV-2 by just this protein spike. There's no part of the virus. The protein spike is how the virus transmits and replicates in our system. So having the protein spike being recognized and trained, we're basically training our immune system via this mRNA to recognize the protein spike. It produces it. As soon as the production is there, the immune system kicks off. That mRNA dissipates, it goes away. It gets moved out through your normal channels. But there's 30 mcgs of this, it's classified as MOD RNA. So that's really critical. It's a glycoprotein that our body produces. So this viral spike S glycoprotein is what this mRNA is encoded to help our body produce. Now there's 4 types of fat. So there's 4 lipids. This actually came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, I want to say in September, when I posted it to all of you, that was reviewing the Pfizer, some details from the early trials of the Pfizer vaccine is that they were showing that the delivery method for this mRNA for lipids. And so it breaks down the lipids. It's literally, and they're so scientific, I won't even go into the details, but like 0.43 mgs of one type of really, I mean, it's a very, very intense name. 0.05 mgs of this other fat. It has a derivative of polyethylene glycol, but it is in a very different form. 0.09 mgs of this other fat and 0.25 milligrams of cholesterol. So that is the lipid. The lipids, you know, sometimes we have sugar carriers, we have lipid carriers. It is a fat lipid-based carrier method. There are several breakdown pieces of salt, like 0.01 mgs of potassium chloride, 0.01 mgs of monobasic potassium phosphate. It has 0.36 mgs of sodium chloride, 0.07 mgs of dibasic sodium phosphate dihydrate, and then it has 6 mgs of sucrose. Those are the ingredients, friends. Okay, so there's nothing in here that I have not seen before. You know, cholesterol is something our body manufactures. The polyethylene glycol, the PEG, we do find this in foods. We find this in pharmaceuticals and various chemicals. You know, it is something that, do we want to be exposed to all the time in our makeup? I mean, honestly, if you are not super green, clean, and not consuming organic and really green, clean skincare products, hair care products, makeup products, you're going to be getting more PEG in your body outside of this vaccine than the vaccine itself. I mean, it literally is 0.05 mgs and this very specialized type of lipid. So that, I wanted to share that because I am all about transparency and giving you guys as much information so you can make determinations for yourself. The other really interesting thing is the FDA is really active. I mean, they're really kicking in a lot of activity points. Just a lot of things are happening all at the same time. Something that came out on yesterday, this FDA release about our first COVID home test. COVID-19, it's an antigen test. So it's not PCR. Just want to be really clear. Antigens are very different than the PCRs, but it's this detailed report from the FDA approving an Australian company, Ellume, I think is how you say it. Ellume is one of many being considered by the FDA. It's the first one that got approval. And it is an at-home test. Sorry, I'm running low on my battery. It's a test, an over-the-counter test. 20 minutes is the turnaround time. 16 and older can take it individually. 16 and younger, parents need to help supervise. But they have allowed this to now be sold here locally. I have a feeling that this will be something we might end up being able to order online. We might also be able to pick up, you know, at your pharmacy. So for instance, like they talk about as far as authorized distribution. So there will be folks that are distributing this. If pharmacies, doctors' offices, et cetera. I'm going to look into that. I don't know who all qualifies, but if it's something I can get, I'll be sure to investigate that. But FYI, home test kits, more so antigen, are on their way to us so that we can test ourselves quickly. Now, you know, accuracy points, that's going to be something. Some of these are 95% accurate. We need to be aware that we may have to have multiple tests depending on where you're at in your exposure. Sometimes we need a few days to pass before it's going to be effective in measuring your own immune response. So I just want everybody to know it's kicking, it's happening. The other thing happening with the FDA this week is Moderna is now in that pipeline of emergency use authorization today's Wednesday. So tomorrow, the 17th, the VRBAC, that's the viral regulatory board pack. It's a nonpartisan, independent advisory committee for the FDA. Those members are meeting tomorrow. It's literally a week after Pfizer. So they're going to meet. More than likely, we will see, depending on what comes out of that, an approval probably Friday or Saturday. Very similar process. They're going to have that board meet. They'll vote. Then the FDA reviews the board's notes and all those good details. Then the FDA will give approval. And again, this is for emergency use. This is not total approval. So this process is very different than an approval process. And these vaccines still are going to have to go through a traditional approval. So emergency uses, we are in dire straits in a pandemic, like this is red alert, 411. And they're going to also require them to continue data. And so I just want to highlight that this is not the end of the line. This is just the beginning, and this is an emergency state. The other big thing that is really important to notate is that, emergency use authorization is very different than approval, FDA approval. And there are certain guidelines and certain ways that they're being utilized. And that's why the FDA or the CDC also gets involved. So the CDC will look at all the data. So yesterday, we have more data that came out from Moderna. It still stays at that 94% efficacy rate, safe. Nobody had an allergic reaction like we saw. We saw just two people in the Pfizer that registered the allergy of unknown source. Now, the one thing that they are going to continue to monitor, and this is really, really bizarre, and I don't know what factors into this, but with these trials, we have 30 to 40,000 people that have been a part of this. So when 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's a low percentage of people, but it still exists. In the Moderna data, one of the things that they saw is that a total of 4 people also had, after their either placebo or the control. So placebo's, fake non-existent vaccine. And then the control group, they actually got the vaccine. A total of 4 of them developed Bell's palsy after the fact. Now, 3 had received the control. 3 had received the vaccine. 1 of them had not. So, Bell's palsy is not something that's overly common, but it does happen. I work with patients who have it all the time. It's this weird paralysis, it mirrors the stroke type of situation where, there's feels like a whole face or an area of the body. Usually it's one side, feels numb, and it's nerve related. It's usually from some viral exposure. Now, again, the mRNA, it's not exposing us to any virus. And so it's very possible that it's an immune response and it goes back to the patient's immune system. We don't know. That's continued to be looked at. Pfizer also has the same 4 in total. So that is something that was evident in the data that came out Tuesday that was released. This whole process, this VRB, I think it's VRBAC, this independent body, it's live streamed. You can watch it. Like, I geek out on some of this stuff, friends. Like, I'll tune in. And actually, our pediatrician in Tampa, he presented and asked questions last Thursday. So one of the things, sorry, you guys, Instagram. One of the things it's public access, public knowledge. There'll be transcripts. You can watch it. I think it's being streamed live on YouTube here. So take advantage of hearing the information for yourself. Okay. Be a knowledgeable individual and gain and collect the information yourself. If you have any concerns, that's really critical. Okay, so the other thing that we are seeing because of Pfizer, where it is, and they're shipping it out, it's moving on trucks and it's in airplanes. Nursing homes are going to kick off the vaccines. There's this whole effort on Monday, the first day of winter. Monday's a really critical day. Monday, big day if you are into astrology, if you are into astronomy, if you are into stargazing, if you have a telescope, you want to pull that out on the 21st. The planets are aligning in a really unique way. We'll actually see the star of Bethlehem. It hasn't been seen since, I think, 1226. Really exciting. We're hoping that we have clear skies here. Brian's telescope's pretty amazing. We saw Saturn in the rings last time it was visible, I think, in September. So Monday's really kind of not a bad ominous, but very, very much a lot of energy. A lot of energy is happening that day. And so it's aligning that the 21st, the vaccine clinics that are targeting the nursing homes is rolling out and is in effect. Some core states that are really big focus for rolling the nursing home communities, primarily because they have a large population and they've also been heavily hit with virus: Florida, Ohio, Connecticut, and West Virginia. Those are states that are rolling those out. CVS will also participate for distribution and the inoculation, if you will, with Ohio and Connecticut. So CVS is getting rolled into that. CVS is based in Rhode Island. And so, they've got a big influence up that way. Okay, so the next thing I want to highlight is much to my commentary on Monday about the rich countries, the population of wealthy countries, and we're one of them. 15% of these countries, or the wealthy countries, they have 15% of the world's population, but they've secured over 52% of the vaccine. So one of the things we're going to see wealth disparities within countries that cannot afford to get the vaccines. And we might also see that impact those populations, and might also be a source where we're going to see clusters of continued outbreak as the more modern, wealthier countries gain access, begin to develop some of that herd immunity with 75% population vaccinated. So just know that might impact if you do any type of world travel or in volunteering or Doctors Without Borders, any of those things. You might be going to communities in 3 or 4 years that still have COVID outbreaks. And it's going to be something I think will have a global impact for a longer period of time. The other thing I want to highlight, let's see here. With regard to that, the percentage of individuals who will actually be vaccinated, it'll be about 25% of our population globally will not be vaccinated. And so that's kind of, I think, also where they're getting that 75% herd immunity. But it does play a role. Now, before we dig into this one hormone that is a really critical player in your immune health, I want to share something really positive. I always love to try and end my news on a positive note. And this amazing woman, 107-year-old woman out of Minnesota. So props to our Minnesotans. My grandmother and her whole line, we have family up there, the Minnesotans. My grandma lived to 98, was really healthy. They have amazing stock. So this 107-year-old woman, her name is Tilly Dybing. I think that's how you say her name. She beat COVID at 107. And it's pretty amazing because at 107, she had no evidence of any lung involvement. She just was fatigued, slept for days. That was it. Had no symptoms other than like fatigue, no headache, no fever. Now, at the age of 5, her whole entire family, she lived on a farm in Minnesota. She was born in 1913. In 1918, she was 5 years old. Her whole entire family had the Spanish flu. She lost some family members, some young children in the family that died of it, but she had exposure. Her dad, she says she remembers her dad telling her when she was running around the house and the whole family's in bed, she was running around. He was like, "Can't you run somewhere else?" And so she's outlived everybody. Lost her husband at the age of 80. At 95, survived ovarian cancer. So the Tilly is just a phenomenon in the health and wellness world. But let's give it props to a 107-year-old woman. So a centenarian who rocked COVID and basically slept for a little bit, and now she's back to normal. Pretty amazing stuff. But there is obviously what we're seeing in a lot of the centenarians, the folks, over 100 or have had exposure. I mean, you're at that point in 1918, 102, 103-year-olds, they've had family exposure. So it's possible that some of these, folks in Italy, and we've seen it all across the world, these individuals survive COVID, but they had families who had exposure. And it's possible that when they were infants, maybe they were pregnant, their moms were still pregnant. There's that possible immune connection, breastfeeding, again, autoimmunity. developed immunity, and also the colostrum and breast milk and all those benefits. So that leads me to kind of dig into today's topic because, actually, hold on. I want to share something also. The CDC posted some data. I forgot to share this. They posted information regarding children and adolescents in Mississippi, and that there was greater community spread within children than they had anticipated and expected. And they dig into like the age group, the biggest age group, 9 to 14, for folks that had it. But basically, community and close exposure was the point of spread within children. So kids, what they showed, and this was a study, that school was not the main point of community spread within children. So when kids and adolescents got COVID, it wasn't from them attending school. It was actually from them attending all these other things, going to church services, going to karate class, swim class, ballet class, all these extracurriculars, playing with friends, being out and about, parents taking them grocery shopping. But the main point of spread was not identified as school. It was external. And so external behaviors outside of the school setting was where kids in Mississippi showed the most amount of spread. Okay, so canyon cakes, no, we don't have any details. The new variant strains, they're just getting some information about a potential new variant. Viruses mutate, it's expected. This is not novel by any means. The virus itself is novel, but the viruses grow and multiply and change and mutate. And it's all about adaptation. It's about survival of the virus. And we humans, or the animals, are hosts. As we see the mink have this really interesting strain. We know more about the mink strain than we do about some of the UK related strain. But they are showing that is something that is plaguing the UK. I don't have enough data, and I haven't seen a whole lot that digs into it. But folks that are being vaccinated are a part of that. This is not something that hasn't been in existence since the summer. Okay, so I want to dig into. Let me put my little marker here. There is a hormone that we all produce, and sometimes in massive excesses and sometimes in really low quantities. And the optimization of this hormone is really critical for promoting your health and wellness overall. And it's really also critical at promoting the health and wellness of your immune system. And so I'm curious if anybody wants to take a guess at this hormone. I talk about it all the time. It is something that you don't normally hear traditional medical providers talking about, testing, assessing, but ultimately it is what is responsible for us in our cavewoman and caveman hardwiring. It's what helps us survive, and it demonstrates our adaptation as humans, a species, to survive crazy famine or extreme mental and physical stress, or a culmination of all these things kind of blowing up all at the same time. But the hormone is cortisol, and it is known as the stress hormone. And I just want to be really clear. This is very different than saying, oh, I'm stressed out, but I can manage it. We literally have a hormone that is induced by stress, physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, physiological stress, chemical stress, environmental stress, hormonal stress. So if you have hormonal imbalance, that will trigger cortisol. If you have inflammation, two things. It's caused by cortisol and it triggers more cortisol. That's physiological stressors. So I'm going to kind of position this in a way that I think it impacts everybody who watches my channel. For sure, it impacts every human being, but I think these points are where we need to really hone in and balance your cortisol levels. If you have swelling, water retention, you have any degree of autoimmunity, any type of gut imbalance, IBS, you have any degree of constipation or diarrhea or gas, bloating, if you have slow wound healing, if you have a hyperimmune state, if you have Hashimoto's or thyroid imbalances, if you've had infertility, cysts on your ovaries, fibroids in your uterus, fibroids or cysts in your breast tissue, you have an inflamed prostate, if you have irregular labs that showcase imbalances or even sclerosis of your liver, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, you might be borderline diabetic. If you have any degree, type 1 or type 2 diabetes, if you present with skin eruptions or skin imbalances, acne, psoriasis, eczema, you have hair loss, dry eyes, a darkening pigmentation of your skin. You might have autoimmunity of your skin where it's uneven pigmentation. If you have slow wound healing and you notice you keloid more, those are all factors for cortisol. If you're holding excess weight in the abdomen, the side, so the flank, the around your butt, the side, we kind of the love handles, that area, you might hold more weight in that area. If you get stressed, you notice that. This is something that impacts every human. And this year, 2020, I'm going to share with you guys, this is usually we go places, travel and have, normal lifestyle. And we usually pick up an ornament or two. So ornaments are kind of our method of showcasing what we did for the year and memories. And it's always fun when we put the ornaments on. Well, this year, this is my ornament. It is the 2020 COVID ornament. And I've written for all of our friends and family, we survived the TP crisis, or I'll say the Chesters or whomever, family members that we're sending these to. And that is 2020 in a nutshell. It has been a very stressful year for everybody. It's been stressful if you have any degree of health crises or underlying health condition. It's been stressful if you've had a loss of your job, school's changed, your family's now working at home, you are working outside the home and stressed about your exposure. That is heavily compounded within the body and already existing cortisol imbalances. And this is where immune-wise, cortisol can actually decrease your immune cell production. We will see a specific decrease in T cell production. It has a net impact within the lymphatic system as well. So the lymphatic system, that's one of my core areas of specialization. I have additional certifications. And if everything all goes well for the summer of 2021, I will be in Germany studying even more information and going to the best of the best, the only lymphatic hospital that exists in the world, and studying under Dr. Foldy to learn more about our lymphatics. I have no doubt that COVID is going to be a part of that influence now in 2021. But lymphatically, our lymphatic system is part garbage disposal. We remove cellular toxic waste. And it's also a response method, a channel method. It's a communication pathway for your lymph nodes. These are not glands, they're called nodes. We have anywhere from 500 to 1,200 lymph nodes throughout the whole entire body. And they are specifically linked to the immune system. Our lymph nodes harbor certain immune cells. Bone marrow is it's a lymphatic organ. And bone marrow is a response to, it's an immune response to pathogens inside your body. Now, there's a net impact when we have cortisol that's imbalanced, particularly when it's too high. It causes insulin elevations. It then gets stored, excess cortisol and excess insulin gets stored in the liver. It causes imbalances in vitamin D synthesis, thyroid hormone synthesis, your ability to get rid of cholesterol and triglycerides. That has a net impact on your heart health and your vascular health. If you have cholesterol building up in your body, you have calcifications, the beginning of arteriosclerosis. That is all plagued. Underlying condition is cortisol imbalance. And if you have any type of insulin resistance, glucose intolerance, cortisol is at play in there. Cortisol also causes lymphatic congestion, slows down the movement of the lymph flow, which is already slowed because we have to move our muscles. So if you are sedentary and you're stressed out, you're going to have more of a lymph impairment. And that is sometimes the beginning of lymphatic diseases and lymphatic disorders. Cortisol is at play. So it's something that we need to harness and balance. I'm going to share with you a few things. The most important thing that you can do is order a cortisol test. And saliva is the most accurate measurement, not serum. Blood is serum. We don't want serum. Serum is an after, basically it's a byproduct. It doesn't give us the accuracy. We produce cortisol in our saliva. It's the highest quantity that we will see, and it's the way we get our measurements. And we will do something called diurnal. We will test when you wake up, we'll test at lunch, we'll test at dinner, and we'll test right before bed. Gives us the scope. It gives us that kind of circadian rhythm. And it gives us the idea. You should be highest point in the morning when you're waking up. You should slowly be moving down to the lowest point right at bedtime. That should be when you feel your sleepiest, energy is going lower, your organs are ready to start their hibernation and rejuvenation. Some organs will take a 2-hour time off, they get rejuvenated and they get back to optimum. When our cortisol is imbalanced and we're skewed, our organs don't always get that break. They don't get to rejuvenate. We have cellular challenges, cellular turnover slows, and that is part of the cortisol factor. And this becomes really critical when we think, okay, let's say you do have an underlying health condition and you're concerned about your heart health, or you're concerned about the swelling and your slowed immune response. Cortisol needs to be harnessed. We need to test it. We need to measure it first. We need to find out where you stand with your cortisol levels. And then we need to actually go into mobilization. We need to do things. We need to either use compounds that block the enzyme that creates cortisol. We need to sometimes dissolve and metabolize cortisol. There's compounds to do that. We also then need to support the underlying reasons why your body's getting are having high levels of cortisol. Sometimes it's inflammation, injury, tissue injury, mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion, whatever it might be, stressors. We can't always check out of our lives and take a vacation, but we can support the body in balancing the cortisol. And underlying so many health conditions is a cortisol imbalance. It is not always the cause, but it sets up the environment where there's automatically an imbalance, inflammation and cellular, slowed cellular turnover, more free radical damage because of that. And so harnessing your cortisol is really critical. And that is the hormone that has one of the most important influences on your immune state. So if you feel like you're not sleeping well and you have insomnia, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, that's a cortisol factor. And do know that when you are having cortisol imbalances, and it's throughout the day, but particularly people notice it at night, you're going to have that influence on other organs and systems within your body. And if you want to optimize your wellness, you want to optimize your immune state, it becomes critical that you balance your cortisol level. I have these test kits. They're available online, so they're at home. They have vials, saliva vials. I'll show you. We have 4 vials to collect in the morning. Actually, we have 3 here. The biggest collection is in the morning. That's the biggest quantity of cortisol that we should see. So we actually collect more. This is the morning. And then we have our lunch, dinner, and evening tests. That is how we test cortisol. And it gives us a snapshot. I will review folks' labs when I work with them now. I do telemed only, which, by the way, I have appointments available this week before our holiday vacation. But I will review their labs. And when I see they've got a serum cortisol, it doesn't give us a big picture. So they might show that they have normal blood serum cortisol, but they're not testing at lunch or dinner, and definitely not at night. And for my men that have prostate challenges, seriously, about 90% will have elevated, like extreme elevations at night, right before bed. And it's stressing, like they're mentally stressing about urination, inability to urinate before bed, waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to urinate, all of those issues. There's a physical factor. There's an inflammation within the prostate gland, which is very much influenced by excesses in estrogen. And in the male body, when a gentleman has any degree of cortisol imbalance, the male body takes testosterone and converts it to estrogen. which is crazy. Then that kicks off this whole cascade of high PSA, inflammation of and enlargement of the prostate gland. In the female body, the reverse actually happens. The body will convert estrogen into testosterone in women. And there are all these enzymatic reactions that occur under the cortisol influence. Part of that is that as cave women, if we had, a grizzly bear or a saber-toothed tiger come into our camp, we needed to run. And it was an instantaneous reaction that we would produce cortisol to run, fight or flight. This is all about fight or flight. We would produce cortisol, but then instantaneously we have a spike in insulin to give us energy. So we have quick energy to ourselves to get our muscles moving, and we run at warp speeds. That's how moms can lift cars off their babies. That is cortisol, adrenaline, cortisol, and then insulin that gets produced. We see that instantaneous stress response. Chronically, cortisol is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and it becomes really, really plaguing to the body. I see Susie's interested in this. Oh no, I lost Instagram. Oh shoot. My phone died. Okay. I didn't keep up with my Instagram. Well, Instagram won't have this live. Phones. Okay. So at any rate, that is what is really critical. And when we do cortisol testing, the labs, they run it, and it's out in the West, Northwest. They run it, they email the patients directly. There's this patient portal, and you have access to that. So it's all HIPAA qualified, HIPAA certified, and then I can review them with folks independently. And a lot of folks will schedule appointments, or they'll do the labs, and then we can have, short little review. And Lucian, yeah, those are en route. I've had a lot of shipping delays. So even FedEx it was like a 3-day delay on getting some of my my Halo Pockets. I finally have more Halo Pockets here that I've got shipping out, and that was delayed. So mail is definitely delayed, but these test kits are really critical. But most importantly, let me share with you a few exercises and things that you can do to help lower your cortisol. I'm always recommending rhodiola, holy basil. Those are 2 adaptogenic herbs. And the other is chaga. Chaga is another favorite that helps balance cortisol naturally. Do they have a specific influence on the enzyme that is the enzyme we need to turn off for excessive cortisol production? No, but overall they help the body adapt to and manage stress, mental and physical. Rhodiola, particularly if you are doing a lot of working out, any workout, high intense cardio, or any type of, you're sweating for 30 minutes or more, you're going to produce naturally more cortisol. And that can have an influence on your immune state. The other thing too is gentle exercises, yoga, tai chi are very impactful for balancing your cortisol levels. That has a significant influence also in lowering your blood pressure and just keeping your body, you're breathing. And so the breath actually helps to balance cortisol. It's one of the most important things. The thymus tap is another point. I recommend that thymus tap. I actually am going to post this edited kind of condensed version to Facebook. So make sure you follow my Facebook page. Here's another plug for that. I will post that as well. I do have it posted on YouTube, but if you follow my Facebook page, you'll see that post today. And then the other thing is there are cortisol supportive nutrients. Some folks, I might need to put them on a glandular. Other folks, I might need to get some of the really intense compounds that balance cortisol. A lot of my men will be on cortisol manager, which is a big part of my prostate protocol. In all of those, the holy basil, the rhodiola, the adaptogenic blends, even some of the functional mushrooms by 4-Sigmatic, you can find all of that in my Full Script store. And I actually have some categories. You can shop by category, and I have a lot of those in there already. But stress is the stress hormone is something we need to manage deeply within our body. We need to actively manage it on a day-to-day basis. And we need to measure this at least once a year, sometimes twice, depending on if you have really intense imbalances. But if you've been dealing with some sort of illness or disease or weakened immunity, or something has been plaguing your body and you have not been successful in getting to the root of what's going on, testing your cortisol is a really good recommendation in starting that broader systemic focus. Because if there's any imbalance in one part of the body, it will cause and create imbalance and even disease in other systems. And internally, cortisol is going to be influenced by all of that. And it's really, really common when I do have tests come back, when I review them or I do a synopsis and email folks and give them a snapshot of what's going on within their cortisol levels, a lot of times they will say, oh, yeah, I always feel really stressed at this point of the day, and you can see those elevations. Or I can look on a test and say, I know you have insomnia, and I know you're waking up at this point of the day, and you're probably feeling this, at night. And it will also register in other areas. We'll see high levels of glucose, fasting glucose. We'll see A1C levels elevated, C-reactive protein. Those are all also influenced by the cortisol levels. Okay, so I want to answer questions. I see a lot of you on here. Please give me a thumbs up, and please check out the top of my chat here. I have for all of you the link to my Facebook page, and in the description as well. Please follow me. I would be so grateful if everybody who joined me this morning followed my Facebook page. I think we'd get to 10,000 very quickly. Tracy's getting lots of snow. I saw that. I have some friends that have been showing some fun snow pictures. We want it down here. We got rain. It's cold and rainy. Thanks, Emily, for sharing my page. I appreciate that. Definitely, please give me a thumbs up. Hit the share button for all of you. Share to your own Facebook pages. I appreciate. And when you share, you can tag my page if you follow me. It's at Your Natural Health Resources. I appreciate that. Astrid, good morning from Connecticut. Hey, Kathy and Karen. Let's see. Okay. TJ virus. Oh, TJ says virus come around all the time. H1N1, Spanish flu. We have lived through many flu viruses, thousands of years. That is true. Some of these have been less overwhelming. We also have this really unique situation. This will be studied for years. I'm sure by the time Gabriel gets to high school and college, they'll talk about this era. It's going to have a name. And, the challenge is we have globally, we're seeing communities that are just abandoning science and facts and information. And that's leading to the crisis that we're in. So where we could ordinarily get a handle of it, we've lost that control. We lost that control back in February and even before then. Let's see. Angela says, what about people with autoimmune diseases? How does that work? So that's the one thing, excuse me, it's continuing to be studied. The most important thing here is with an my recommendation to my patients, it has to be individual. We can't just talk broadly about different autoimmune diseases, because everybody is dealing with it differently. So there's your biochemistry, your own gut health, all these other things. But if somebody is in a flare, like a lupus flare, we don't recommend that anyway, to get a vaccine. And so, my recommendation, as always, is to support your immune state, support your gut, and lower your inflammation levels, lower your body's natural reactivity. Now, with that, cortisol is going to set up that reactivity. It's going to set up that heightened sense of responsiveness of an already imbalanced immune state, which is autoimmunity is an indicator your immune system is imbalanced. Your gut is imbalanced. You have high levels of inflammation, systemic inflammation, and you need to do deeper work to heal your body. Anybody who's dealing with that does plan on getting a vaccine needs to be doing work right now. You need to manage your cortisol. You need to lower, balance, lower it where it's high. You need to lower your inflammation levels, and you need to heal your gut. So I recommend colostrum therapy. That's one of the things that I recommend. And there's an assortment of really positive resources that I provide here on my channel, over on Instagram and Facebook, but also you can schedule an appointment. I'd be happy to work with any of you that wants to get really deeply involved. But, knowing that we don't have a whole lot of time behind us when it comes to these vaccines. And that's why I wanted to make the distinction today. FDA approval is not the same as FDA emergency use authorization. There continues to be information that we're studying. We're going to learn more about the state of immunity and the autoimmune conditions. There were, they have it broken down. It's all transparent. There are a percentage of folks that have underlying health conditions, autoimmunity being one of them. Yeah, Bell's palsy. So this is really interesting. I have seen folks on the younger side. 30s is about as young as I've seen. Raynaud's is another thing that we see very common. But yeah, that 107, could you imagine? It's amazing. So let's see. Yes, cortisol, vitamin D. Oh, I see you guys are guessing. Okay. Okay, so Susie is caring for 2 kitties. And, TJ, the one thing, right now we've had a meltdown of epic proportions within the CDC, and it's become politicized. And so we need to be really cautious of all of the information that we're absorbing from that. And we need to know the sources of the politicization. I think that's the right word for it. I have a very healthy skepticism of what comes out. And that's, again, why I post this MMWR. I used to, before they got infiltrated, their website got, indoctrinated, and they got taken over by HHS for political reasons. There are clinicians and scientists that are aligned with the truth and data and fact. And when they started to communicate the truth and the factual information about this virus, it didn't align with the political desires. And, I can go into that. I'm not a political channel, but we are going to have a change. And that philosophy that existed before there's no room for that now, as we are in a massive pandemic state. And we have daily death levels, fatalities that are equivalent to some of the massive historic bombings. We have Pearl Harbor. We are reaching that on a daily basis. The amount of people, the amount of soldiers dead in one day from COVID. We are also seeing exceeding levels from 9/11 in one day. And so we need to put that in perspective. Those are not numbers, those are people. And so I understand that people want to use information to suit their own, needs, but, this is not fear oriented. We just need to be very cognizant. And also, we're not going to vaccinate our way out of this. It's not going to happen. We need to be smart. We need to support our bodies. We need to also stay vigilant in wearing masks, staying socially distanced. It's very critical. All right. So, Margaret, what about fibromyalgia? So I know I've had those questions asked. I haven't seen a lot specifically about fibromyalgia, but also at the end of the day, that is inflammatory. That is, once we have that, we're managing the inflammation. We can get some of the nerve repair, the nerve sheaths. So the nerve sheaths basically become just completely obliterated. We have holes in the nerve sheaths, and it becomes this systemic challenge. But also, I just want to set everybody's expectation. We have not had any significant overwhelm in any autoimmune category or any underlying health condition that's caused a red alert. We've had those 2 cases of weird allergic reactions, and it's plausible. I mean, you could very well have somebody who's allergic to the what is it called? The PEG that's in it, or any of these other, even, not the salts. But, the lipids are probably what people are responding to more so. But in total, I mean, the dosing is 0.43 mg, 0.09, 0.05, 0.02. So it's, let's see, it's less than 0.7 mgs. It's minuscule. And I really, I wanted to kind of demonstrate. There's some degree of, I don't want to say hypocrisy, and I don't want to be judgmental, but there are a lot of people less concerned about their everyday items that have these ingredients in them than they are about the vaccine. You know, they're more concerned about the vaccine that has really small quantities and less concerned about the daily for, you know, years and years on end. If you're really that concerned, then you need to go clean and green and be consistent with your concern. And that is something I think too, it's also an excuse. And we need to be very cognizant of also what is motivating some of our own concerns. And, you know, that's also too for folks like right now, I'm reading different literature about pregnancy and breastfeeding. And I also have folks that I respect in these worlds that they have varying kind of thoughts in terms of how they're advising their patients. And that comes down to an individual basis. We don't have a broad amount of pregnancy and pregnant women and breastfeeding moms in these trials. These were voluntary. And so not everybody was stepping up. We also see the disparities social, economic, racial disparities with the parties that stepped up to play. Similarly, I think we're also going to have seen probably some degree of some of these underlying health conditions play out where we didn't have those people volunteer. And this was all voluntary. It's not like they were forced to take the vaccine. So whoever stepped up, the 30, 40,000, so we're, you know, under 100,000 people who stepped up to get the vaccine to be a part of this trial. And, you know, part of that knowing they might have a placebo and be willing participants of catching COVID, that's a risk. We don't have a lot, but because it's in, and Moderna more than likely will get its approval process. I see less of a catch with Moderna than I saw, and not less of a catch, but like we don't have anybody who's had any severe reactions. More of like longer term, they might have spiked a fever, but nothing like an allergic reaction. One of the things I do want to communicate is because of that, the emergency use authorization still requires us to gather data, still requires the companies to report data, still requires these independent bodies to meet and to continue to talk to and amongst themselves, review the data and also hear from outside parties. You know, this just doesn't, you know, there could be something that occurs and, you know, we see pregnant women or we see folks in this, you know, health bucket step up, get the vaccine and see some weird scenarios. They will make immediate determination. And again, the CDC will be part of that, where they say this particular group of people, we don't advise them to get this vaccine or to wait until X, Y, and Z is met. So it just is one of those things I really want to kind of set the expectations of what this process looks like. It is quite fascinating to watch this in real time. We're witnessing history. We're witnessing historical movement within the scientific world. It's exciting, you know, especially for those who are scientists, that the movement, mobility, the amazing knowledge and information. And I also want to highlight that Moderna and Pfizer, the brain source, the powerhouse behind these vaccines, this technology, they're female-led, so props to the females. And we have Pfizer is a woman of color. And that is huge. I mean, think about that. It gives me chills. We're in 2020, approaching 2021, and we have had women at the forefront of science. I just got a book from a neighbor about Marie Claire. You know, that was the only woman that I ever learned about in science that had any substantial impact globally. That is exciting. And I think we need to really celebrate that as a huge win for women in science. And, you know, STEM, all of the STEM programs that are female forward and focused on supporting women and young girls in the education. It's very exciting. I love it. Thanks, Anita. But, you know, for sure, it is, it's a big time, and it's a big time of unknowns, and human nature, our kind of psychology. Some people respond to unknowns better than others. And we also have to acknowledge that and understand that. And that is where I hope to help folks gain the information, gain the knowledge. Like I had a lot of people freaking out. Well, you know, and this is how the freak out goes. they're not disclosing the vaccine ingredients. And, if they're not going to disclose it, I'm not going to know it. It is very easily accessible. I mean, I got this, I can do a snapshot of this, I can share it. This is on Google, it's on Yahoo, you can find this. You just have to search for it. And we also live in a world where people are not thinking for themselves and doing their own research and relying on memes and tweets and 140 characters for their news. And we have to get out of that. That is not productive, and it is proving to be fatal for some folks that are still in denial while they're getting intubated that they don't have the virus. That is just mind-blowing. And there is going to be trauma for families. There's going to be trauma, PTSD for the families and the nursing staff, the clinicians. That is overwhelming because of this craziness, the lack of acknowledging science and the role science plays. It has helped us to this day. And also science, just for one little thing on the anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax, okay? That's not my leaning personally and professionally. But anti-vaxxers get to be anti-vax because of science and herd immunity, because so many adhere to vaccines and the scheduling. And so it was debunked. This whole herd immunity was debunked because of a lack of a vaccine. And Sweden is in a world of hurt right now because of that philosophy. And it showcased that is an invalid viewpoint. And it's being scientifically proven in real time at the risk of lives being lost. So that is kind of where we're at. Okay, Donna, thank you. I love clarifying things. I love to give you guys all helpful information. And Pat and Ron, can we give them lots of love? Actually, let me see. I think I put it up. I did. She sent me this really, really sweet letter and holiday card. So thank you, Pat and Ron. And so tune in Friday. Friday, we're going to do a live Q&A. Today, I have a podcast coming out, a podcast interview, not on my podcast. I've kind of tabled that. But I'll post it, linked information where you can hear me talk about more about gut health. And I dig into, with the podcast host, I talk about, it's a nutrigenomics podcast. I talk a lot about chemicals in our environment, like the PEG that is overwhelming in multiple sources on a daily basis to our body, to our immune system, into our health, into our gut health. And so that does have a direct correlation to our immune health. And I hope you'll check that out. So I'll post that to you guys. I've got a link somewhere in my email, and I'll share that on Facebook and all those other places. So have a great day, everybody. Hey, Darlene. Thank you, Darlene and Pat and Karen and Susie, Penguin. I love it. And Donna, I love seeing all of you. And TJ, thanks for commenting. I know that, a lot of people need to discern information and it takes time. I just implore you to look deeper and to also understand that there are a lot of motives at play. And the big one right now is we have an infiltration of global parties that are trying to disrupt this whole process. And so, that's another point. We just really need to be cognizant of that. So be safe, be well, everybody. Happy Wednesday. And I'm so excited about the 21st. That's going to be a really big day. So if you guys want some news on it, just Google like December 21st and planet alignment. It's going to be really exciting. So anyway, give me a like, follow me on Facebook. And I would really love it for all of you still on. Please share my Facebook page to your other Facebook friends. So if you post my Facebook page to your profile and say, follow this page, I am grateful for that share. So let's spread the word. Let's get the good news out. And I will see you guys on Friday for our live Q&A. Bye, everybody.